to say a few words. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Glenn, and it's wonderful to see so many people in such fine numbers. I was just thinking there is no more appropriate place for freedom-loving Irish people to gather than under the statue of Daniel O'Connell, our great liberator, who brought the life of Irish freedom to this country 180 years ago. We must remember our history, we must remember our recent past, and we must never let it happen again. I'd like to thank the very charming musical accompaniment on my left-hand side. I think we'll call them the Whistling Witches. Would that be a good group name for them? Perhaps, ladies, a bit of a musical accompaniment. Some beat there maybe might be a good thing. You know, many people think that perhaps it's all over. Perhaps the lockdown is over and we're going to get back to normal. Well, I sincerely hope to have some semblance of being right, because I never again want to witness the obscenity of what we have witnessed as Irish people over the last 18 months, where there have been attacks against our liberty, our right of freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of religious worship. We must never let that happen again. We must also remember that the legislation, which is now at that level of repression to be enacted, is still on our statute books, and it has never been properly tested by the courts. Perhaps our greatest failing as a nation over the last 18 months is that all of our civic institutions, none of them enabled a test to be carried out of the propriety of what the government was doing at a constitutional level. Our churches, our media, our Oireachtas, and most of all our higher courts failed to hold the government to account. Faced with the most important constitutional crisis in our country's history, our courts simply sat on their hands and kicked this critical matter to touch in the hope that it would go away. Well, the Irish people are not going to go away when it comes to a fight for their liberties. It may be that we will return to some semblance of normality, but when I hear sinister terms like the Great Reset and the new normal, then I can only conclude that there is an effort to ensure that the future world which we face will be a very different and much uglier place than that which we have known. One of the most chilling aspects of what we have witnessed over the past year and a half is the extent to which multinational high-tech corporations, many of them with a substantial presence in this country, have been used by government to track and trace our population, to censor freedom of expression, and to censor and cancel those who go against the accepted narrative. And that is particularly the case in the case of so many fine doctors, including several who are members of our party, who have come out to tell the truth and who have been attacked both personally and professionally for doing so. We will not survive as a democracy if we censor and silence people who express dissent despite their high level of qualifications. If we do not stand up to this, our democratic and political structures will become worthless, the freedoms for which we fought will become meaningless. I am here to say that the Irish people are not going to let that happen without a fight. My particular fear is that the COVID tyranny which we have witnessed has been merely a trial run for an ongoing system of surveillance and control which will be justified by other manufactured crises, whether health or climate or racial or gender related. And to that end, we must fight above all against to resist the efforts to introduce the digital passports. Any form of passport system will gradually be extended into every aspect of our lives, and it will not just be about vaccinations. Digital internal passports have the potential to form the foundation of an unprecedented surveillance and control system into which the lives of all of us will be tied, including health records, banking and credit. It is based on the odious Chinese Communist Party social credit system, and if we do not stop it now, it has the potential to enslave us for generations to come. When government tries to introduce a modern, technocratic system of slavery, we must say to them that our forebears fought for hundreds of years to end slavery, and we will not allow you to bring it back under a different name. What is perhaps most sad and shocking of all is to see those countries which have traditionally been democratic, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, France, have now been effectively reduced to the status of police states, with the most extraordinary and sinister proposals being made openly for mass incarceration of their own populations. I have tired of saying that this is scarcely believable, because every day some new horror is announced from formerly democratic countries. Do not be under any illusion, but that's what's in store for here. Several countries in Europe have now dismissed from employment even those in the most crucial areas, including healthcare, those who refuse to participate in the dubious project of mass vaccination. Ireland always has been one of the most repressive of European states, and it always wants to be the best boy of the class. Do we have any doubt that at the first sign of an increase in influenza, as always takes place in October and November, that the government will recommence their push for lockdowns and COVID passports? Once the passport comes in, all is lost, because that is the precursor of a cashless society. That is the precursor of watching every move that you make and every transaction that you make. And we must draw the line in the sand if they attempt to introduce a passport, an internal passport system.
I do not comply!
To that end, I will call on all people of goodwill to prepare for a widespread campaign of civil disobedience against the provision of internal passports, and we in the Irish Freedom Party will happily play a role in organising such a campaign. I know that many of you are here today, not so much to protect your own interests as to protect the interests of your children. Be in no doubt that your children are in the sights of the woke left. Again, it may be that the vaccination campaign against children is aimed at seeing how far they can assert control of their children against the interests and the wishes of their parents. Whatever other purpose vaccination serves, it has nothing to do with the health of our children, because they are under the least possible risk from virus. Every parent who has a school-going child will be aware of how our schools have recently been used to promote homosexual propaganda against our children, frequently against the wishes of the parents. The corruption of our children has long been the aim of the Marxist left. The purpose of destroying and economically undermining our family structure was a prelude to getting at our children. Well, we have only one word to say to the sinister forces which are obsessed with corrupting our children, and that is, you can keep your hands off our kids when they're in the schools or with your wretched injections. Now that we move into what Mr. Varadkar and his henchmen have referred to as the new normal, the Irish people will face two imminent and immediate threats. The first is the ongoing attack against freedom of speech, masquerading under the guise of prohibition of hate speech, and the second will be an irrational program of economic destruction, masquerading under the guise of the other great conspiracy theory, man-made global warming.
Mass corruption!
And the third is being fucking Irish and being proud.
Want to listen to him?
Okay.
Listen to it. Listen to him.
Go home then!
I would ask you all to be familiar with the proposed hate speech legislation at present before the Dáil, and which apparently has the support of all of our parties. It constitutes a dreadful attack against freedom of speech and freedom of assembly, which will mark a descent into a barbaric dark age of intellectual and social repression. We will never go into that dark night of social repression. If we allow a gang of unscrupulous elites to determine what we can and cannot say in public, then the great struggle for Irish people, for Irish freedom, has been a struggle in vain. The Irish people will never let that happen. Many people have spoken about the recent Zapornigate scandal and how it was a sad indication of cronyism at the highest levels of government. In my opinion, however, the worst aspect of that scandal was this: how could anybody other than a Bilderberg insider conclude for a moment that Catherine Zaporne, a person who never saw a dissenting idea that she did not want to censor, could possibly have fulfilled her role as an envoy of free speech on behalf of Ireland? That attempted appointment shows the utter contempt that our government elite has for democracy and for the very concept of free speech. We will have no more Zapornes and no more left-wing petty Hitlers trampling on our democracy. Shall I wrap it up?
Freedom! Freedom! Freedom!
The whole process of government in recent times has seemed to revolve around the creation of false crises and then the introduction of repressive and destructive legislation in order to fight problems that do not really exist. The greatest fault perpetrated against the people is the sheer insanity of climate change policy. The measures proposed by government at the behest of the Green Party has the potential to destroy our economy for generations to come and to reduce us to penury. The digital controlling mechanisms which have been introduced during the manufactured COVID crisis will be wheeled out to attack and undermine individual freedoms during the forthcoming climate-related hysteria. We should be under no illusion that the extremist policies being promoted will be aimed over the next 15 years to lead to an economic and political dystopia which will immiserate our society and destroy our freedoms. We must get back to a situation where the economy serves the people rather than the people being the plaything of multinational forces. I will conclude. I must stress that we as a people do have the power to protect ourselves from tyranny. That is the lesson of Irish history. And those who seek to destroy our liberties will do well to look to the lessons of Irish history. We have within ourselves the power to bring an end to government overreach by refusing to cooperate and by making it clear that we will fight against tyranny at every available opportunity. There can be no doubt that we face a period of struggle, but every healthy person welcomes struggle when it is in a just cause. We must make government know that the Irish people will never be slaves and that we will face death before dishonour. Many of us fear that the government agents are coming for us and coming for our children. Let's make it clear to them that the tide has turned and we will come for them and we will demand justice for what they have done. We must make it clear to everybody who has been engaged in wrongdoing, in corrupting our democracy and manipulating our laws that there is a price to be paid, and sooner or later we will demand that that price will be paid. I conclude by thanking you for coming out in such great and enthusiastic numbers today, and I ask you to continue to stand by our country, our nation, our families and our republic, and to stand by the rights and liberties of the Irish people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael.